My wife channels Marie Kondo and throws out things that she doesn't like when she goes on her cleaning sprees. The problem is that she will throw out things that are important to me or would be used by our daughter, 3 years old, if offered. Among other things, this is very frustrating because I have had to rebuy many things. I discovered that she did this early in our relationship after a few too many things were disappearing. Since then, I've practically begged her to talk to me before throwing out things, like putting them in a box for me to go through or something like that. Instead, she will throw things away and lie to me that she did not throw anything away. When I go through the trash and find all of the things she threw away, she will tell me she doesn't think they mattered, and so they didn't count. Each time this happens, I've told her how badly this makes me feel and how it feels disrespectful and controlling to make these decisions about our things without discussing it with me first. This is something I've made very, very clear, how much this upsets me, to not have autonomy over my own possessions. She doesn't do these purges terribly often, I'd say only a few times a year. I'm definitely messier than her and probably keep things that I don't really need, but I'm a team player, follow her lead about how she likes the house, and far from a hoarder, if she put things in a trash bag that she wanted to get rid of, I would acquiesce to throwing out most of it. We otherwise have a very good and close relationship, and I love her deeply. Yesterday, she cleaned up the house, again promising that she didn't throw away anything. For some reason, I believed her this time and just so happened to notice bags of things she was throwing out when I was taking out the trash. It included toys that our daughter might like, but she is too young for. It included something I made for our daughter that she loves and is very important to me. She threw away disposable things that I would have to buy again. She threw away some of my clothes that I wear regularly that she doesn't like, but knows I don't want to get rid of. It took me a long time to dig through the trash and return these things to their spots. Internally, I feel like I'm losing my mind. It's not the stuff, it's the trust. She knows how I feel about this, did it anyway, and covered it up by lying again. This is probably going to come across as melodramatic, but it feels like a betrayal and violation of the trust and faith I put in her, almost equivalent to finding out she was cheating on me. Not that it is the same degree or equivalent, but I have similar feelings of violation and a loss of trust, of the type that I've felt when I've been cheated on before. Not with my wife. Talking to my wife about this has not been effective at all. I'm having difficulty getting over the perceived betrayal of my trust. I have no idea what to do to move past this and regain the trust and closeness that I feel was lost. To add, what a response. Thank you all for affirming my feelings about this. I respect and appreciate the comments, even if I think many are too harsh on my wife. While I agree her behavior shows a fundamental lack of respect for me and my autonomy, you all can't know what happens 99.9% of the rest of the year. For clarification, some of the things she throws out could qualify as clutter, though I would say most of it is stuff that is where it is supposed to be. Almost forgot. She is not throwing away things that are obviously valuable, like a game console or something like that. I can generally understand the logic for throwing away the things that she does. Some of the things she throws away, I really think she should know better, though. Unused packages of cannabidiol gummies, partially full container of kerosene, containers of superglue. To reiterate, this isn't a messiness thing. Well, at least not completely. I recognize that I am messier than her and have to put in special effort to try to keep up. But I'm not a slob or a hoarder or anything else that might provide some justification for throwing away things. She isn't throwing away things I leave out. She's throwing away things that she doesn't think I need. Most of the things she throws away are in their appropriate spot when they are thrown out. She doesn't actually watch Marie Kondo. That was just me explaining that she likes to get rid of clutter by getting rid of things that take up space. Now, for an update. She has been extra sweet to me since the day before yesterday, clearly knowing that I was upset with her. I talked with her last night. I had written her a letter which I wrote expressing how I felt, to make sure my feelings were clearly and seriously expressed. I procrastinated handing it to her, and she saw how distraught I was, and instigated a conversation before I handed it to her. She seemed to believe what upset me was that she had taken away a desk and pushed all of my things to a smaller desk, taking away the area for me to do my art there to make more room for our child's things. While I'm not super happy about that, I told her that wasn't what was bothering me. I explained how it hurt me that she knew that I don't like her throwing things away, and she did it again anyway. I explained how she had thrown away art and other things that really upset me. She told me that she hadn't realized that, for example, the chessboard that I had made was not a piece of junk, because she only saw the underside of it. This is an epoxy chessboard that I spent many hours painting and preparing. While it's a little bit bent, it is gorgeous, and the time I put into it shows. I told her that she shouldn't even be making those judgment calls because she keeps making these kinds of mistakes. She then got a bit defensive, saying that I should have cleaned up the clutter already because I had talked about tidying up my desk. I agreed that I need to be better about it, but this argument doesn't make any sense because none of the things she threw away came from my desk. They came from my nightstand, my clothes drawer, my closet, and a separate closet, and I told her that. I hope her statement was just something said defensively without really thinking about it, because the logic behind it has some bad implications. If she got rid of my things in my non-desk areas because of a messy desk, that means she got rid of things in non-desk areas as some kind of revenge. Even if this had anything to do with the desk, I told her that she should at least warn me before she goes through the purge. While I know that she shouldn't have to ask me to keep things tidy to her standards, the least she could have done was to tell me to address it before she starts getting rid of things. I told her if this was really about clutter, she should leave it in a box for me to go through. She told me that I had gotten mad at her in the past because she had done that. I remember no such incident, but I told her that even if I had gotten upset about that, which doesn't make any sense because that is what I keep asking her to do, why would it be worse than throwing out the things without asking me? She told me that I should keep my things in my closet or the garage because those are my areas. Then I asked her if I have to keep all of my clothes in the garage too? Also, she had taken things from my closet, the alleged safe space. She said that she had only taken a shirt that was stained and shorts that I had agreed to get rid of. That just wasn't true. There were several shirts, pajama shorts, and a tank top that she threw away without stains. Also, the jean shorts that she said I had agreed to get rid of was not true. I told her that I needed to get new shorts because I've been losing weight, but I don't have the replacement shorts yet. If I had been ready to get rid of them, I didn't need her help. Throwing out those shorts would have left me with only one pair of shorts that fit me. I know that she has a tendency to be a bit defensive and say things without thinking too much when she feels like she is being attacked, but she will usually ruminate on things later and address things more reasonably after taking the time to digest the issues. Normally, I try to give her a little space when she gets defensive like that so that she has her time to reflect. However, it made me very angry that she kept trying to defend her actions, which were clearly bad, with arguments that did not make any sense. Though I've previously called her out on breaking her promises not to throw my things away, I had never called her out on her lying. I got upset and asked her why she keeps lying to me about it if the things she is saying are true. She didn't really respond. I kept to myself the rest of the night. I cried a lot. She kept being extra sweet to me. While she might be acting like she had realized she is in the wrong and said that she would set aside things she wants to throw away first, she never actually apologized or expressed remorse. She didn't say that she wanted to earn my trust back. It makes me think she still doesn't understand how devastating to me it is that I cannot trust her anymore. I'm not satisfied with this result, and I'm going to push hard for couples therapy, as has been discussed in the comments. Contrary to some of the other comments, I adamantly believe this is not worth destroying our marriage over and raising our daughter in a broken home for. That said, her reaction, response, or lack thereof, to being told how upsetting it is that she keeps lying to me is an enormous red flag. If she doesn't care about regaining my trust, then I don't think we have a marriage to save. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. My issue is the lying. I would be able to tolerate it if she at least owned up to it, or like you said, just threw everything in a separate garbage bag for you to go through. I get it, we all have different cleaning styles. But the lying is too much. Is she a compulsive liar? This sounds like a deeper issue, and maybe she needs therapy to address why she feels okay to do any of this, especially the lying about something that is so ODD to lie about. You either threw something away or you didn't. There is no gray area. She doesn't get to not count something. Comment 2. You don't and can't because she isn't remorseful and will do it again. Think about how it's going to make your kid feel when she can remember where stuff went at 14 crying on your shoulder again because mom threw out her favorite sentimental item. Think about the long-term damage she's going to turn your kid into a hoarder. get a divorce for your child. You have a small level of culpability by not leaving this woman when she started doing the shoot before you had a kid. Now, for the update. Thanks for all the comments and support from the last post. So, a lot has happened since I last updated. After our conversation, my wife did seem to make an effort to be more considerate. She started putting things she wanted to throw away in a box for me to go through, just like I had asked. For a few weeks, it felt like we were making progress. I was still hurt and cautious, but I appreciated the effort she was making. It seemed like she was finally understanding how much this issue was affecting me. However, about 2 weeks ago, something happened that threw me for a loop. I came home from work to find my wife in the garage, going through some old boxes. She looked up at me with a guilty expression and said she was just trying to organize things. I felt a pang of anxiety, but decided to give her the benefit of the doubt. I asked her if she had thrown anything away, and she assured me she hadn't. I wanted to believe her, so I didn't press the issue. The next day, I noticed that a box of my old journals was missing. These journals were incredibly important to me. They contained years of my thoughts, feelings, and memories. I confronted my wife, and she admitted that she had thrown them away, thinking they were just old notebooks. I was devastated. I couldn't believe she had done it again, especially after we had just talked about this issue. I was furious and told her that this was the last straw. I couldn't keep living like this, constantly worried about what she might throw away next. She broke down in tears and apologized, saying she didn't realize how important the journals were to me. She promised to never throw anything away without asking me first. But at that moment, I didn't know if I could believe her anymore. We decided to take a break from each other for a few days. I stayed with a friend while she stayed at home with our daughter. During this time, I did a lot of thinking. I realized that this issue was about more than just the things she was throwing away. It was about trust and respect. I felt like she didn't respect my feelings or my belongings, and that was a huge problem. When I came back home, we had a long talk. I told her that I loved her and wanted to make our marriage work, but I couldn't keep living like this. I suggested we go to couples therapy, and she agreed. We found a therapist and started going to sessions once a week. The therapist helped us communicate better and understand each other's perspectives. It was a slow process, but it felt like we were making progress. One day during a therapy session, my wife revealed something that shocked me. She admitted that she had been feeling overwhelmed and stressed out for a long time. She said that throwing things away was her way of trying to regain control over her life. She didn't realize how much it was hurting me because she was so focused on her own feelings of anxiety and helplessness. This revelation was a turning point for both of us. It made me realize that her actions weren't just about being inconsiderate. They were a symptom of a deeper issue. We started working on finding healthier ways for her to cope with her stress. She began seeing a therapist on her own to address her anxiety, and I made an effort to be more supportive and understanding. We also set up a system where we would go through things together and decide what to keep and what to throw away. It wasn't perfect, but it was a step in the right direction. As we continued therapy, I learned more about my wife's past. She grew up in a chaotic household where her parents were constantly fighting and there was always clutter everywhere. She told me that she used to feel like she had no control over her environment, and that's why she developed this habit of throwing things away. It was her way of trying to create order and stability in her life. Understanding this helped me empathize with her more, even though it didn't excuse her actions. One day while we were going through some old boxes together, we found a photo album from her childhood. As we looked through the pictures, she started sharing stories about her family and her upbringing. She told me about how her parents' constant fighting made her feel anxious and insecure. She also shared some happy memories, like the time her dad took her to the beach for the first time. These stories helped me see a different side of her and understand why she was the way she was. Despite the progress we were making, there were still moments of tension and frustration. I still felt hurt and betrayed by what she had done, and it was hard to fully trust her again. But I could see that she was trying, and that gave me hope. We continued to work on our communication and trust, and slowly but surely, things started to improve. A month after our initial conversation, we had another breakthrough. My wife came to me and apologized again for everything she had done. She said that she finally understood how much her actions had hurt me and that she was truly sorry. She promised to keep working on herself and our relationship. For the first time, I felt like she really meant it. We still have a long way to go, but I feel more hopeful about our future. We're both committed to making our marriage work and creating a better environment for our daughter. It's not going to be easy, but I believe we can get through this together. Thanks for reading. Am I the idiot for confronting my husband about cheating only to find out he's reliving his childhood trauma? My husband has been acting odd lately. I first noticed it a few months ago when we were at the grocery store. He would buy things that are geared towards children, such as stuffed animals, candies that he previously said were only for children, things like that. He would go out of his way to get kids' meals at restaurants as well. But it wasn't every day, and it wasn't a lot, so I figured maybe he was finally giving in to what he had always wanted as a child. He had a rough time growing up. Both of his parents were hurtful and parentified him. He's currently in therapy for that. Then he started pulling away from me at home. He would start spending time in our bedroom with the door locked, saying he was napping, but I could hear voices in there. He stopped leaving his phone out and changed the password. When I asked about it, I had to use his phone to make a call while he was driving. He couldn't give me a straight answer. And he pushed me to go places without him, leaving him alone in the house. I thought he was cheating, and maybe the younger woman brought out new feelings in him, making him want to act like a kid again. So today I went out to the gym as I normally do, but this time I left my phone at home on purpose. I drove all the way there, hoping to make him think it was just a normal visit with the timing, and then I came back. When I walked in, the TV was on, playing a kid's cartoon, and I saw my husband sitting on the floor in an adult pull-up with a pacifier in his mouth. He turned around. I don't think he had heard the door open, and he looked terrified. That's the only word I can really use for it. He looked afraid of me. He pulled his pacifier out and tried to explain, but I told him that I needed some time before he could talk, and before he said anything, I was out the door. I'm at my sister's house now. I told her that we'd had a fight, but not what it was about. My husband has been texting me, asking to call or come home, but I haven't responded. I don't know what to do. Now for an update. I have texted my husband, letting him know that I'm going to stay the night at my sister's house. I told him that I'm not upset with him and would like to talk about what I saw, but want to ensure I'm in the right headspace to do so. We have both been having a stressful time of things, and I want to make sure I'm completely calm before meeting with him. I don't want to upset or hurt him further. I also reaffirm that I love him very much and that we are not getting a divorce. Sorry, those of you who were saying we should. I'm going to talk with him about everything first. Now, for another update. I headed home early this morning. We have had a conversation, and yes, you guys were right. He is an age regressor and has been participating in this for a few months now. His therapist recommended it to him as a way to reclaim his childhood. It has apparently been helpful for him, especially now that we have been trying for kids. He has struggled with thoughts of becoming like his parents, and this has helped him come to terms with those fears in a healthier way. He had been planning to tell me for a while, but had struggled with figuring out the right way. I did tell him about the suspected cheating, and we both had a good laugh about that. I'm glad that it was only this. I told him that I still love him, and while this was not the ideal way for me to find out, I would be willing to participate in this activity with him if he wanted me to. He said he would be comfortable with that, and we have plans to watch one of his shows together tonight and order in food for dinner. Thank you all for your advice, except those of you who called my husband a freak. It helped me put this all into perspective. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. It's private regression. It doesn't sound like it's an intimacy thing, and obviously it's very hard to explain. Age regression is a way to cope with trauma, and is not the same as age play. Age play is the fetish stuff. I would highly recommend going to couples therapy. You're justified to be shocked by this behavior. It is unusual, and he knows that. But it sounds like something that may have been helping him cope with topics that have surfaced in therapy. Comment 2. I think it's either a method of recovering from childhood trauma or a fetish. In regards to childhood trauma, when I was 14, I would warm up milk and pour it in a water bottle with one of those babyish spouts. I started to crave a pacifier, but never gave in, and I tucked myself into bed and stroked myself. Looking back, it was a weird, soothing technique that I can't quite explain. All I know is it helped. As for the fetish, I know nothing of it, so can't comment. Now, for the update. Thanks for reading my last post. So, after our conversation, things seem to be getting back to normal, or at least a new kind of normal. We watched a show together that night and ordered in some pizza. It was a bit awkward at first, but we managed to laugh and enjoy ourselves. I could see how much it meant to him, and honestly, it was kind of nice to see him so relaxed and happy. The next day, I decided to take a day off work to spend more time with him and understand this new part of his life. We went to a park nearby, and he brought along a stuffed animal. It was a bit strange, but I was trying to be supportive. We talked a lot about his childhood and how this age regression thing was helping him. He opened up about some really painful memories, and I could see how much he was struggling with the idea of becoming a parent himself. He was terrified of repeating the cycle of abuse he went through. That evening, we had another heart-to-heart. He admitted that he was scared I would leave him when I found out. He said he felt ashamed and didn't know how to bring it up. I reassured him that I wasn't going anywhere and that we would figure this out together. We even made a plan to talk to his therapist together to get some guidance on how I could support him better. But then, something unexpected happened. The following day, I got a call from my sister. She sounded panicked and told me to come over immediately. When I got there, she handed me a letter she found in her mailbox. It was addressed to me, but there was no return address. Inside was a single piece of paper with a typed message. "You don't know the whole truth about your husband. Ask him about the other woman." My heart sank. I thought we had cleared up the cheating suspicion, but now this? I didn't know what to think. I decided to confront him about it that evening. When I showed him the letter, he looked genuinely confused and hurt. He swore he had no idea what it was about, and that there was no other woman. I wanted to believe him, but the doubt was creeping back in. We decided to go to his therapist together the next day. During the session, we brought up the letter. The therapist suggested that it might be someone trying to sabotage our relationship, especially since my husband had been making progress in his therapy. It made sense, but it didn't completely erase my doubts. Over the next couple of days, I noticed my husband becoming more withdrawn again. He was spending more time in our bedroom with the door locked. I didn't want to push him, but I was worried. One evening, I decided to check on him. I knocked on the door, and when he didn't answer, I opened it. He was sitting on the floor, but this time he wasn't in his age regression mode. He was holding a photo album, tears streaming down his face. I sat down next to him, and he handed me the album. It was filled with pictures of him as a child, most of them with his parents. He pointed to one picture of a woman I didn't recognize. He told me that she was his aunt, his mother's sister. She had been a big part of his life growing up, but she had a falling out with his parents and disappeared from his life when he was about 10. He had always wondered what happened to her. This revelation hit me hard. I realized that there was so much about his past that I didn't know. We spent the rest of the evening going through the album, and he shared more stories about his childhood. It was heartbreaking to hear, but it also made me understand him better. The next day, we decided to try and find his aunt. We did some online searches and managed to track down an address. It was a long shot, but we decided to go for it. When we arrived at the address, an older woman answered the door. She looked at my husband and immediately recognized him. It was an emotional reunion. She explained that she had tried to stay in touch, but his parents had cut her off completely. We spent the afternoon with her, and she shared more about his childhood and the family dynamics. It was clear that she had been a positive influence in his life, and reconnecting with her seemed to bring him some peace. She also mentioned that she had been sending letters to him over the years, but they had always been returned. This made us wonder if the mysterious letter was somehow connected to her attempts to reach out. As we drove back home, my husband seemed lighter, like a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. We talked about how we could include his aunt in our lives moving forward. It felt like a new chapter was beginning for us. But before I wrap this up, there's one more thing. When we got home, there was another letter waiting for us. This time it was from his aunt. She had written it after we left, explaining more about the family history and some secrets she had kept to protect him. It was a lot to take in, but it also brought us closer together. So that's where we are now. We're still figuring things out, but I feel more hopeful than I have in a long time. Thanks for reading. Am I the idiot for blocking my girlfriend after she destroyed my handmade gift and called me a liar after not talking for a couple of days? She finally texted me asking why I haven't called or texted her. I told her the truth. I've been mad at her and trying to decide if I wanted to continue the relationship. How the fact that we were having a good time in 1 minute and then the next was pure madness reminded me of all the shoot I went through with my mother as a teen, and how I don't want to deal with that ever again. I had a very emotionally hurtful mom that would constantly cause fights over literally nothing. Think DVDs, staple guns, tape measures, etc., then kick me out of the house in order to show me whose goddamn house this is. So I have an extremely low tolerance for people starting up and coming at me over petty nonsense. To top it all off, my mom has since passed away, so that's another layer of things, but I've never tried to make my issues anyone else's problem. I've told her about my mother before, so she knew all about this. She told me she didn't mean to make me feel that way, but my flat-out refusal to show her the pictures, combined with me turning away from her when I was deleting the nudes, made her feel like I was hiding things and rejecting her. I immediately called BS because I told her we were going to keep looking through the iPod. I was just deleting my ex's nudes, and she damn well knows it. In the 2+ years we've known each other, I've never given her any reason whatsoever to doubt me or think I'm a liar. I eventually get tired of texting, so I try to call her, and she rejects the call, telling me she's not ready to speak yet. I tell her I'm done texting, so call me when she's ready to talk, and I quit replying. She starts sending me angrier and angrier messages when I wouldn't reply back. Fuck you. This is controlling. What the frick's wrong with texting? Go frick your redheaded witch. My ex in the pictures was a redhead and has been out of my life for over a decade. She then sends a picture of an action figure that's been broken apart, and I immediately knew who it was. Prison Mike. It was freaking Prison Mike, and he was innocent in all this. You see, much like myself and a lot of you, she loves The Office. So for her birthday this year, I hunted down a 3D printed Prison Mike, 1/12 scale head and little mug, combined it with a Two-Face figure's body, and spent a week painting them both. I then printed out a backdrop of the conference room, as well as pictures of the main cast, except Andy, I hate him, and made a diorama with standees of them in it for the Prison Mike figure. All combined, the thing took about 2 weeks to make, but it was fun. And when I gave it to her, she went nuts, hugging me, kissing me, calling me sweet, and saying it was one of the most thoughtful things someone's ever given her. And now she's apparently taken a hammer to it. I'm done. I don't know what the hell her problem is, and like Phil Collins, I don't care anymore. Property destruction, whether hers or mine, for any reason, especially revenge, is automatically game over for me. I'm shocked, annoyed, and confused, but still, thank you all for your interest and responses, and please pour one out for Prison Mike. He was truly da belle of da ball. P.S. Now for an update to my original post where my now ex-girlfriend and I were cleaning out my closet and found my old iPod Touch from 2010 that I haven't touched since 2013. After powering it up, my then-girlfriend and I started going through the pictures and stumbled across old nudes from an ex-girlfriend. Upon seeing what they were, I immediately turned away from her and started deleting the pictures. That pissed off my then-girlfriend and kicked off this chain of events. I hope this clarifies for people that didn't see the first post. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Oh, 7 Prison Mike. A lot of love went into making you, and you went out saving this poor man's love life. To quote the late great, the worst thing about prison was the Dementors. OP, I'm glad you got out of prison and escaped that Dementor. Prison Mike would be proud. Comment 2. I'm sorry to see how things panned out, but I'm glad you're safely away from this person. If I may ask, given all her unhinged behavior, do you think she would have used you showing the nudes against you later? Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking around. After the whole Prison Mike incident, I decided to take a break from everything and everyone. I needed to clear my head and figure out what to do next. I took a week off work and went to stay with my buddy, who lives a couple of hours away. It was good to get away and have some time to think. My buddy and I spent the week fishing, hiking, and just hanging out. It was a nice distraction, but I knew I couldn't avoid my problems forever. When I got back home, I found a letter from my ex-girlfriend in my mailbox. It was a long, handwritten letter, and I could tell she had put a lot of thought into it. She apologized for everything that had happened and said she wanted to talk things out. She admitted that she had overreacted and that she was willing to go to therapy to work on her issues. She also mentioned that she had been dealing with some unresolved trauma from her past, which she hadn't told me about before. I was torn. On one hand, I still had feelings for her, and I appreciated her willingness to work on herself. On the other hand, I wasn't sure if I could trust her again after everything that had happened. I decided to give it some more thought before making a decision. A few days later, I ran into her at the grocery store. It was awkward at first, but we ended up talking for a while. She seemed genuinely remorseful and told told me more about her past. She had grown up in a chaotic household with parents who were constantly fighting and a father who was emotionally hurtful. She said that her past had made her insecure and that she often felt like she wasn't good enough. Hearing her story made me feel for her, but it also made me realize that we both had a lot of baggage to deal with. We decided to meet up for coffee a few days later to talk more. During our conversation, she brought up the idea of going to couples therapy. She said she wanted to work on our relationship and that she was willing to do whatever it took to make things right. I was hesitant, but I agreed to give it a try. We found a therapist and scheduled our first session. The therapy sessions were intense. We both had a lot of issues to work through, and it wasn't easy. There were times when I wanted to walk out and never look back, but I stuck with it. I could see that she was trying, and I wanted to believe that we could make it work. However, as the weeks went by, I started to notice, some red flags. She became increasingly possessive and would get upset if I didn't respond to her texts right away. She would accuse me of not caring about her and would bring up the incident with the iPod every chance she got. It felt like we were going in circles, and I was starting to feel suffocated. One night, after a particularly heated argument, she stormed out of my apartment. I was left feeling drained and unsure of what to do next. I decided to call my therapist and schedule an individual session to talk things through. During the session, my therapist helped me realize that I was trying to fix someone who didn't want to be fixed. She pointed out that my ex's behavior was a pattern and that it was unlikely to change. I knew she was right, but it was still hard to accept. I didn't want to give up on the relationship, but I also didn't want to keep putting myself through this emotional roller coaster. I decided to take some time to think about what I really wanted. A few days later, I got a call from my ex. She was crying and said that she had been in a car accident. She was okay, but her car was totaled. She asked if I could come pick her up and take her to the hospital to get checked out. I agreed, and when I got there, she was a mess. She was shaking and kept apologizing for everything. I took her to the hospital and they checked her out. Thankfully, she was fine, just a few bruises and scratches. After we left the hospital, we went back to my place. She was still emotional and kept saying how much she needed me. I felt torn. I wanted to be there for her, but I also knew that I couldn't keep putting myself through this. I decided to be honest with her and told her that I needed some space to figure things out. She didn't take it well and accused me of abandoning her when she needed me the most. The next few days were tough. She kept calling and texting, begging me to take her back. I felt guilty, but I knew that I needed to do what was best for me. I decided to block her number and focus on my own healing. In the weeks that followed, I started to feel more like myself again. I reconnected with friends and started doing things that I enjoyed. I also continued going to therapy, which helped me process everything that had happened. I realized that I had been trying to save someone who didn't want to be saved, and that I needed to focus on my own well-being. Looking back, I can see that the relationship was never healthy. We both had our issues, and we weren't good for each other. It was a hard lesson to learn, but I'm grateful for the experience. It taught me a lot about myself and what I need in a relationship. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day!